there booktube, it's Eleanor here, and today I'm wrapping up my Summerathon. You may have seen that I made a tentative TBR for the Summerathon readathon, and I'm really excited. I ticked this off. I ticked off all the challenges and I did it with a day to spare, so I'm really proud of myself. So I'm going to review all the books that I read and tell you which of the prompts that they met. So the first book I picked was for my beachy reads category, and this was Until It Fades by K.A. Tucker. I listened to this on audio and I consider it sort of a beachy read because it's a sort of contemporary fiction, and that tends to be what I'm sort of looking for. And I enjoyed this one, but I didn't love it, unfortunately. I haven't read any K.A. Tucker before, and I have since looked into some reviews and found that people who love K.A. Tucker said this isn't one of her strongest books. It was okay though. It was an easy listen. Our main protagonist is Catherine. She's 24, she's a single mother, and she works at a truck stop diner as a waitress, and we learn her backstory very early on. In fact, I think it might even be in the blurb. She, at the age of 16 or 16, had a relationship with her art teacher at school, who was 30, and became the sort of town pariah because he was a much loved teacher, and she ended up recanting her statement, and she thought she was in love with him, all sorts of different things, and so she's lived with this sort of stigma for ages. She then became pregnant a year later, and has sort of lived as a single parent, having some relationship problems with her family. She doesn't get on well with her mother because of things that have happened, and she's tried to stay under the radar, just, you know, doing her job, bringing up her daughter. And then one night she happens across a vehicle that has crashed at a sort of notorious spot in town. She rescues the driver as the car sets alight, and it turns out that this driver is an incredibly famous hockey star, and so begins this sort of media circus and this sort of relationship with this hockey player, and we sort of go from there, really. I think my biggest gripe with this is that I didn't really feel any emotion or any chemistry between the characters. I didn't feel any chemistry between them at all, and you kind of want that. That's the main crux of these type of books. And it was very formulaic. I mean, it was very obvious what was going to happen. There was no big surprises. So it was just okay, really. So for a book that was okay, a bit slow to build up and didn't feel any chemistry, but you know, it was okay and easy enough to read, I ended up giving it 3 stars. Next up, the prompt was a book with sunrise colours on the cover, and I picked this one, which I think has a lot of sunrisey type colours, and it's Summer of No Regrets by Kate Melinda. This was a light and easy read, and I loved its friendship at the core of it, and I loved how the friendship that was in here, there wasn't these massive dilemmas. They were a really supportive and well united group of friends. There was no big issues, there was no massive blowouts. They were just really supportive of each other, and the issues that they faced came from outside of that friendship, and I really enjoyed watching how they you know, bolstered each other and how they supported each other in everything that happened. I think the biggest problem I had with this is there was so many issues in there, but we never got a sort of deeper look or a chance to sort of explore any of them in detail. I mean, it's a short book anyway, it's only sort of 250 pages, and there was just so much in here. We had anxiety, fostering, divorced parents, panic attacks, fostering, cancer, feminism. I mean, there was just a lot in here, and then there was never a chance to really sort of take a closer look at anything in detail, which I think would have been quite nice. The basic idea of this is it's told from 4 points of view. There's 4 friends, and they decide, because of something that one of their grandmothers says, that they're going to have this summer of no regrets. They're going to say yes to things that perhaps they're a bit worried about. They're going to do things that they've talked themselves out of doing. So one ends up going to a science camp that they've been really interested in going to. One ends up going to stay with her father in Geneva. One ends up getting herself a job and pushing herself a bit out of her comfort zone. And the other goes looking for her birth father. So there's lots of things going on, and we're just following them in their 16th year as they go and try and have no regrets. I quite enjoyed it. Like I say, it was a quick, easy read. I read it in one sitting, just not a great read. And so I ended up giving this one 3 stars. The next prompt was a road trip book, and I ended up reading Gone Viking by Helen Russell. I haven't read Helen Russell's non-fiction book, but I've heard it's really good. It's called A Year of Living Danishly. So she's obviously taken what she knows about Denmark and Sweden and Norway and sort of put it into a fiction book. This book takes 2 siblings, 2 sisters. They're adults and they just don't really have much of a relationship. At the start, Alice, who is our main protagonist, she's a dentist, she's a mother of 2. She's in a failing relationship. She's not enjoying the relationship she has with her husband. It's become quite stale. It's quite obvious that she's not in love with him anymore. And her sister convinces her to go on this sort of break with her, and they end up at this Viking retreat. Melissa, the sister, lives a much different way of life. She loves animals. She lives much more simply. She's never really had a long-term relationship. She doesn't have children and doesn't have an interest in having children, and the 2 sisters really just couldn't be any more different. And when they're thrown into this sort of wilderness exercise of living in tents and living off the land, and it being far more rustic than they had anticipated, it really throws them into dissecting their own lives and also each other's and their relationship with each other. And there's some other characters that are sort of along for the ride as well. It's a good fun read. The pacing is really good. The writing is really engaging. But I just felt that, again, nothing was really handled or dealt with properly by the end of the book. I also struggled a little bit with Alice, our main character. I felt she was very judgmental. I didn't really gel with her character so much in terms of the way that she acted towards things and how she behaved. And even at the end, when she sort of went through a bit of character growth, I just didn't feel like it was really necessarily enough. But it was good and it was fun and I enjoyed it. And so I ended up giving this one 3 stars. Next is a book that's set in summer, and I decided to pick up I'll Meet You There by Heather Demetrios. I really enjoy Heather Demetrios' writing. I feel like she really picks some interesting topics to cover, and I ended up really enjoying this one. Our main character Skylar and her best friend Chris have spent their whole lives planning and plotting to get out of the small town they live in. Skylar has got a difficult home life. Her father died when she was much younger. Her mother has never really recovered. She's a recovering alcoholic. They live in a trailer and she works as much as she can, and she has not had a drink ever, and she has kept herself motivated and focused on her schoolwork to get a full ride to go to college because she wants to get out. She wants to get away from how things would be otherwise. And so they're just in the summer before they're heading off to college. She's got this scholarship and she's working at the local motel, and then a boy who is now 19, who had left a couple of years previous to join the army, comes back. He has lost his leg in the war. He is changed. He is suffering from PTSD, and he comes back. He is someone that she's sort of known quite well, has been quite friendly with, has obviously had a bit of a crush on, and things sort of progress with the 2 of them, and there's this sort of relationship that begins. So we have this exploration of survivors and war survivors, and we also have this look at what you can do to pull yourself through to something that you want, and how to achieve that and to stick to your goals, how to be supportive. We also have this other perspective from Dylan, who is Skylar's other best friend. She is a young mother. She's a teenage mother. She wants something different to Skylar, and it's about showing that that's okay. She's happy with what she wants, and not everybody wants the same thing. So we sort of look into that a little bit, and we're exploring this romance that starts to begin between Skylar and this young man, and how that sort of works. And both of them come with baggage. Both of them have expectations, and it's them sorting through these things and unpacking the baggage and working out if it's possible to be together. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very well written. Heather Demetrios does a great job of writing difficult plots, and I really enjoyed it, so I ended up giving it 4 stars. The next book was a book with food on the cover, and I ended up picking up Meet Cute by Helena Hunting. I really thought this was such a sweet book. In fact, I read it in a day. I just couldn't put it down. It's about Kaylin, and she is this sort of very rational, very sort of calm, very focused woman. And we start the beginning of the book. She is starting her first day at law school. She's mantraing in her head that she's going to be best and she's going to be the top, and this is how she's going to do it, and she's determined to be the top of her class. And then she literally falls over this boy playing frisbee, and it turns out that he is her childhood crush off TV. He's like a teen TV star, and so someone she watched the TV show for rigidly throughout her life, and she is fangirling hard over him and giggling and asking him to sign things, and she just can't help herself, much to his sort of amusement. And then it turns out that he is in her law class, and then we flit to 5 years later, I think it is, and she is in a law firm. She's practicing law, and she deals with trusts and people setting up trust funds. And it turns out that this boy that she'd fallen over, that is in law school, they had a bit of a rivalry. He ended up being top of the class. She has never forgiven him for something, but we don't really know what, and I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to spoil sort of parts of the story. But she doesn't like him, and he ends up coming in with his family to set up a trust for his younger sister. The parents want to set up a trust for her. She's 13. So they go through the process of doing that with Kaylin, and then tragedy strikes, and this is all in the blurb. The parents are killed in a car crash, and Daxton, this young man, this child teen star, who's also a lawyer now, ends up with full custody of Emmy, the 13-year-old, and Kaylin ends up as this sort of custodian, and they're sort of thrown into each other's pockets a bit, and it's just about them working through these issues that have happened, working through the attraction they have for each other, working out this sort of mystery behind certain things that are going on because somebody else wants custody of Emmy, and sort of going through that. And it was just a real fun ride. It was a real gobble up book. The pacing was really good. Nothing was a big reveal. I mean, these plot things that happened, they were, you could spot a mile off what was the you know, what was going on, but it didn't matter. The journey there was really good. The steamy scenes were really good, and I enjoyed the sort of steaminess of them. I believed in the emotions and the chemistry between the characters, and there were some real smiley, fun moments. Emmy is very convincing as a 13-year-old character. She's written really well. I really believed in those sort of tantrums and the way that she might be feeling after the death of both of her parents. And I just thought that was quite believable. And I just really enjoyed this. So I ended up giving it 4 stars. And that was all the prompts. The only other prompt was that you had to read while drinking a summery drink, and for that I've been drinking some cider. I really enjoyed it. I had a cider while I was reading my first book over the weekend. I'll put up the cider that I really like up here, and so I completed all the challenges, and I'm super proud of myself. It's not often that happens. I think I was just like determined. Also, I'll just open my folder here for you to see. I decided while I was doing it that I would be timing myself on my reading, and I read, it wasn't over in fact it was over 5 days. I read 25 hours, so I read 5 hours a day, and I managed to tick off all the hours on my sheet as well. So it just goes to show that if you can read for that length of time, you can get through quite a lot of books. Now, as a bit of a bonus, I'm just going to tack on a couple of reviews at the end here of 2 other books that I have read recently that I wanted to talk about. The first one is The Lost and the Found by Kat Clark. I've had this on my shelf for ages. I've not really wanted to pick it up, but then I ended up picking it up, and I found myself a little bit conflicted by this one. On one side of this, the writing style is really fast-paced and engaging, and was enough to make me want to read this in one sitting. But unfortunately, the plot for me felt very unrealistic, and not very plausible, and also very predictable. There was a plot device that was used in this that I just don't feel, I can't tell you what it is, but I just don't feel like that particular piece of evidence that the police would have been trying to gather would have been left for that long without them just going ahead and doing it. And I really feel like that plot device sort of jarred with me a bit. I didn't feel like that would actually happen in real life, and so I felt like as well the actions of the characters towards the end just felt really unrealistic, and I don't feel like that's the way things would have gone. So I struggle a bit with this because I think for some people they will really enjoy this. They'll really enjoy the way it's written. For me, it wasn't. It's about a family where a girl has been kidnapped at a young age, and this is now years and years later, and she turns up and she's a sort of an adult. She's a 19, I think, year old. It's been years, and yeah, 13 years, and now she's back home, and it's really about the younger sister's feelings towards this, and them learning how to get to know each other because they don't really know each other. They, you know, 13 years is a long time. It's about how the family reacts to this. The mother and father aren't together anymore. So I really liked the idea of this, but yeah, there was too much in there that was a bit like, whoa, and no, that doesn't feel right. So yeah, 3 stars for me. It was okay. Some people will love this, but it just wasn't my favourite. And then the final book I want to talk to you about was one that I really, really adored, and that is The Paper and Heart Society by Lucy Powrie. Lucy is a booktuber, and one that I have followed since I since I joined BookTube. She's a UK booktuber, and she wrote something that I really enjoyed, and I'm really pleased that I did, and I'm really pleased she's written this book. I thought it was really well written, and for a debut I'm super duper impressed. One thing I loved about this is it's set in places that I know, and places I've been to, and places that I know that she has been to. I know Lucy grew up, I think, around this sort of area, so she's written about what she knows. It's about Tabby. She's moved from Cheltenham to Dorset with her parents. Her parents are just sort of tidying up the house that they're moving from, and she's gone to live for the summer with her grandmother, who's already where they are moving to, and part of the reason, well, the main reason really, that they're moving there so that they can spend more time with her as she gets on, you know, she's sort of getting on in life. And Tabby and her have a lovely relationship. She's a very funny woman. She's talking about her Zumba class and the man down the road that she kind of has a crush on. There's obviously something from the very start going on with Tabby, but we don't know what. She's very anxious. She's got these thoughts in her head. There's obviously something that's happened with sort of friendship groups, or something, some sort of bullying that's been happening at home. And she finds this flyer in the library about a book club. She joins the book club, and it's about these people that she meets and finding out about what friendship should be like, and facing her fears, and having that support network that should always be there with friends. This book covers self-esteem, low self-esteem, panic attacks, bullying, parental loss, anxiety, and there's themes of LGBTQIA+, which I really appreciated. And we're just following each of these characters, but along the way there's so much literary references, so many things going on at this book club. There's a Jane Austen dance party. They go on a bit of a road trip together to Bath and other places. There's talks of Shakespeare. It's just a really, really lovely book. It's the start in a series. I'm definitely going to be picking up the rest. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, so I ended up giving this one 4 stars. So that's it. That is my Summerathon wrap up. That is 2 extra bonus book reviews for you. I'm on a roll and I'm really loving it, and I'm just going to keep going and see how I get on. But I'll cut off now because it's been a ridiculously long time. So I look forward to speaking to you soon. Bye for now, BookTube.